Good morning to you. I'm Gayle King. We're in the CBS This Morning Toyota Green Room, live and in color with radio icon. What's your name?
Delilah.
Yeah.
You got to sing it.
I know you really do. But you know, it's so funny, Delilah. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Because I know everybody comes up to you and goes, Delilah. But you can't help it when you see
I love it.
It doesn't get old to you?
No, never.
It's Delilah. Millions tune in every week to hear her give advice to the lovelorn, and those who are really still looking for love in all the wrong places. Her off-air life is still full of love, too. She's a mother of 13 kids. I hear soon to be 14.
Soon to be 14,
You're in the
God
process
willing.
of adopting another one. 10 of her children are adopted, and in her new memoir, it's called One Heart at a Time, she opens up about some of the challenges she's faced over the years, including the loss of her 18-year-old son, Zack, to suicide last year. Welcome, Delilah.
Thank you.
You write a lot about Zack. Tell us his full name. I love his name.
Zachariah Miguel Rene Ortega. Or Zack Attack.
I know, Zack Attack. I'm glad that you can talk about him and smile, because a year is still a short period of time for something that caused you such pain. But I'm curious about Zack, because you said he knew he was loved, he knew that he was surrounded by people that cared about him, and that it was just a series of circumstances, you say, that led him to take his life.
Well, I am convinced it was medication that led him to take his life, but it was a series of very sad circumstances that led us to seek help that got him on the medication. Mm-hmm. He had 3 very traumatic things happen in a very short period, compressed period of time.
Mm-hmm.
He
like what happened?
Wrecked his car into the side of a police officer.
Not good.
Not good. He was driving in a storm, totally an accident, was not an on purpose, was an inexperienced driver in a horrible storm. Mm-hmm. But he thought he had killed or injured the man terribly because he hit his head and there was a lot of blood. And he never drove again, even though the man was fine.
It was very jarring to him.
It was so jarring that he thought he hurt somebody. He never drove again, which limited his life, because his father and I lived like, it was an hour and a half driving, but it's 3 hours by public transportation. So that altered his life. He moved out of the farm where he had lived his whole life. He really wanted to spend his senior year with his dad, but he didn't.
Because you and his dad were no longer together.
Right.
Yeah.
We divorced when he was before he was walking, so he had never really spent as much time with his dad as he had hoped to. But he didn't realize Zack was very social. He was the life of the party. He was.
You said he was a live wire from the time he was born.
From the day he was born.
I got a kick about reading about him, because one day he invited 40 people over for lunch.
Yeah, we went. There was African Children's Choir performing at our church, and after they performed, the director came up to me and said, "Delilah, that was so nice of you." I said, "What was so nice of me?"
Yeah.
He said, "To invite us to lunch." I said, "What are you talking about?"
'Cause that's
he
what
said, "Your
Zack
son
did."
said that we were invited to your farm for lunch, and we don't have any plans for lunch, so that's." And with the adults, it was like 52 people.
Yeah.
Something crazy coming to the house. I'm like, ah!
No, you know, when I was reading, I was so frightened, because right up, he took his life October 2nd, but leading up to the days, he was making plans. He was making plans about the dentist. He was making plans about going to school. That's why I always say to people, sometimes these things happen without any warning. We can't say, "Oh, I knew that he was upset or sad."
Well, we knew, like I said, he had these things happen. And so in January, there was a crisis. He missed 2 weeks of school because he was gravely ill. He missed school, which meant he wasn't going to graduate with his class. And that was the third, girl trouble, car, and he went into a depression. And so his dad and I did everything in our power, thinking we were doing the right things. We got him to a doctor, we got him to a counselor, wonderful counselor. And she had a session with him 3 days before he left us.
But you're convinced it's medication.
I know it's medication, because he left a 9-page letter, and there was no mention of sorrow, no mention of loneliness, no mention of sadness. It was insane ramblings. It was the writing of a crazy person, about time travel and deja vu. And he said, time is a river, and I'm able to enter and exit the river's edge anytime I want.
So you'd never seen that kind of nonsensical
It was
talking.
completely nonsensical. And so everybody's like, whoa, he must have been on some crazy drugs. And I'm like, no, I know my son. He wasn't on crazy drugs.
Are you comfortable talking about what the drug was?
No, I can't.
You
do
don't
that.
want to say what the drug was.
But it was.
But what you've learned about this drug is very troubling.
So when the toxicology report came back, he was on nothing. He had quit taking his antidepressant, it looks like about 10 days before. He told a couple of people, young people who never said anything, that the side effects were killing him. And so there was no marijuana, no alcohol, no anything in his system. And that's why I know, because I know my son, he wasn't crazy, Gayle. He was a lot of things.
But when you look into the research about this particular drug, you see other people. I think the doctor told you, 3 other teenagers were on
The
this
coroner
drug.
who handled
That's why it's frightening to me. Yeah.
And so the research that we did, and I went kind of insane. I went over the deep end.
I'll bet.
Because I found out that the medicine that had been given him, the drug makers know that in young people under 25 years old, 47% of the time causes more suicidal ideation. 47%.
Right.
I'm like pulling my hair out going, that's not possible.
Right.
How can you sell a medicine and I went and picked it up. I went and filled the prescription. I said to him every day, did you take your meds? Did you take your meds? Did you take your meds? Not realizing 47% of the time.
You think you're helping him.
I thought I was helping my son.
Then Delilah, why aren't you comfortable saying what the medication is?
Because I don't want a lawsuit.
Okay.
But
people should investigate what you're talking about. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this. This is very, very scary to me.
The drug company hid the research for several years. When it was exposed, they were fined and forced to put a black box warning on the medication.
Which means what?
Which is a little black box. It's like 2 inches by 3 inches that says
that are on the
the prescription.
Box. Yeah.
If you take this, please know that there have been increase in suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, and delusions.
Then most people don't read the black box.
I never saw the black box. He was 18.
Yeah.
He was 18. And here's the other crazy thing in our country. If you're over 18, your parents have no input in your medical care.
Yeah.
So here he was depressed. He knew he was depressed. We knew he was depressed. He was very open about it. He was very open with his counselor about his depression. We think we're helping him by taking him to a doctor who puts him on a medication that we have no knowledge of, no information about. And my bad for not doing the research beforehand, but I have medically fragile children. I have children that have asthma. I have children that have sickle cell. I had a child that had sickle cell. So I'm used to filling prescriptions.
Yeah, are you considering legal action in this particular?
No, I just want people to know that if you are diagnosed with depression or your child is, do the research before you take medication.
Yeah.
Because had I done the research, had his father done the research, and his dad is a very, very, very smart man. He researches everything.
As are you.
Thank you.
As are you, Delilah.
But the two of us together never knew.
Yeah.
They had no clue. We thought we were helping, that we were giving him a poison.
And that's why I think it's so important that you're at least sharing this part of your life and your story. That while you're reluctant to say the medication, if someone's going through this, please do the research and please read the labels.
Especially if you're under 25.
Yeah.
Especially if you are under 25.
Yeah. What did Zack teach you? You say in your book he taught you patience.
He did. Zack taught me. Zack had 13 broken bones before he was 13 years old.
How in the world is that possible?
He was born with no fear factor. He could scale anything, and he didn't feel pain the way you and I do.
Yeah.
So little things like this.
Yeah.
He had sensory integration problems. So this would drive him nuts, a gentle, soft touch. But jumping off a staircase and breaking his collarbone at 3 years old, he didn't even cry.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the fact that his arm was hanging limp by his side, we wouldn't have even known.
And you said he taught you to love deeper?
He definitely taught me to love deeper. Zack loved intensely and without condition or reservation. His friends still come to the house every day.
Yeah.
His friends are the best young people. People talk about, how young people are this or young people are that. Let me tell you, young people are awesome.
Awesome.
And his best friends, his circle of friends are so good to me.
Well, you have a beautiful story in the book about a teacher who talked to you about Zack, about how Zack was always looking out for other kids in the class, that I thought was very moving.
Always.
And very indicative of who he was as a person.
Yeah, there was
He befriended a guy in the cafeteria.
Stephen.
Yeah.
I just heard
I love that
before
story
yesterday from
about
Stephen's
him.
mom that he's got a really good job. So Stephen was a young boy. He came to my house after the services, and he said, "You can probably tell I'm a little goofy." And I'm like, "You look like a wonderful young man to me." He goes, "I was awkward." And he said that his family was going through stuff, and he didn't have any money for lunch. And he said, "Your son saw me sitting alone in the cafeteria, and he came and sat down next to me and said, 'Dude, what's up? Why the long face?'"
Yeah.
And he said, "I was embarrassed to say I was hungry."
Yeah.
And he made light of it. And he said Zack disappeared, and 5 minutes later he came back with a tray of food.
Yeah.
And my personal assistant, Joni, was always kind of going head to head with Zack because Zack would like to lock horns. And she came home and she said, "You gotta get on Zack. He's running a scam of some sort." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She says, "His lunch money's gone.
Yeah.
I put in enough money for the whole month, and it's gone in like 2 weeks." And so I confronted Zack and I said, "Are you like, what's going on?" He's like, "Mom, it's, I'm just eating a lot, I guess."
Yeah, he didn't even want to give up his friend. Yeah.
He never.
Yeah.
I'm a show-off. If I were that age and I did something nice, I'd want attention for it. Not Zack.
Not Zack.
Not Zack. Not Zack. And this young man said, not only did he, get me lunch, he became my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, before you know it, all of his cool friends are hanging out with me. And he said he made me feel loved.
So that has to comfort you in some way to know that you raised a son that had such a compassionate heart to look out for other people, Delilah. As painful as this is, that has to give you and make you smile knowing the joy that he brought to others.
It does.
I smile. I didn't even know Zack, and I just thought, and you tell many stories about him in the book, I should say. I smiled thinking, what a great kid, what a great kid
he is an amazing kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many stories. And after he passed, there's a little funeral home in our small town that said, you can come and spend as much time as you want. And his friends came, and, the funeral home director, I'm sure, thought we were going to be there an hour or two. Gayle, we stayed all day.
I believe it.
And story after story. And before you know it, we're howling, laughing. And here's my son's body. It was weird, but just the stories of silly things he did and loving things he did and crazy things he did. I'm like, how did he even make it to 18?
Well,
how did he even make it to 18?
Because Delilah, you were his mom. That's how he made it to 18. Let me tell you, if there's something it's about mothering. We said in the beginning that you have 13 children. You're about to adopt another one. That would make 14. 10 who were adopted. And you talk in the book about your life. I got a big kick out of you, too, because you just said you were a show-off. You write about being a show-off.
I'm such a show-off.
Now,
I was born with the show-off gene.
Well, you said I didn't have the, athletic skills, the math
Can't throw a ball, can't dribble a ball.
But what you could
can't throw a Frisbee for the dog.
But what you could do, I didn't mean to kick you, but what you could do is talk. You were always a very good talker.
Always a very good talker.
So how nice that you earn your living talking.
How nice. Yeah, how nice. And for the teacher that taped my mouth shut in third grade.
With duct tape.
Ha!
Yeah, with duct tape.
Yeah.
Because you were talking too much.
Constantly.
When did you know, because I think your voice is so unique. You probably don't think so. Or maybe you do now, but you have such a unique voice. And I discovered you, over 20-something years ago when I was commuting back and forth from Connecticut to New York and living in Connecticut. I would listen to you at night. I would like to say that I personally have added 6 limo drivers to your repertoire.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Saying, put it on
Because
Delilah.
I would say, put it on Delilah, and they go, what is this? And then they would start listening, and then I'd get in the car, they go, I was listening to her the other day. You know, she was telling the different stories. I'm always fascinated by the men that start listening. I was listening to her the other day, and before I knew it, I had tears running down my face because you have a unique way of telling a story and matching a song with a story. But when did you know that you had this unique? I'm very fascinated by your voice.
I never knew that. I never knew that. And my voice.
You do know it now, though, right?
My voice has been this deep since I was a little girl. And my mom used to tell the story that she'd be like in a grocery store. And not only did I have a different voice, I was big. I was like this tall in 7th grade.
Yeah, you're 5'10".
Yeah, and I was a big little girl. And Mom said I'd be.
You were 5'10" in 7th grade?
Yeah.
Wow, that is tall.
Yeah, and the boys were like 5'0".
No, I was tall. I lived in Turkey as a kid, and I was in 5th grade, taller than everybody, and you'd have to line up. And I'd be taller than all the boys, and they would call me Goofy Gayle, And so to this day, I said to myself, I used to want to be little and petite. Now I'm not, and I'm glad I'm not. But to this day, I have this hang-up about I like guys who are taller than me. Do you have that hang-up or no?
No.
You don't?
I just like guys.
So, so if they're shorter than you, that's okay.
That was okay. Yeah, my husband, Zack's dad, was much shorter. Not much shorter than me, but he was shorter than me.
You also said that you were very attracted to radio, which lucky for us because you have such a good voice. But there was one director, one boss who said to you, you know, women don't really like listening to other women talk.
Research had told him that.
Research.
Yeah, research.
There you go.
This is like 15
groups.
years into my career.
Yeah.
Where I've talked to thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of women on the phone, at conferences, speaking engagements. And I was in my 30s. I was a mother of 2. And he was in his 20s and had been at 1 or 2 stations before.
Yes.
And he's sitting there definitively telling me to shut up.
This is what the research shows.
Yeah, and that you need to shut up and play the music.
And you said, it's really better what you did.
I reached into my pocketbook and I removed something.
It's a tampon she removed. Okay, go ahead.
And I said,
think of that visual, people. Okay, you took out the tampon.
I said, when you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to the store because you're out of these and you're bleeding to death, then you can tell me what women need or want. But until then, you don't really have a clue.
Did you still keep your job after that?
No, I didn't.
No, because you write that you've been fired. By the time you were 21, you had been fired how many times?
3 or 4 times.
By the time you were 30, you had been fired?
Quite a bit more.
8.
Yeah.
8 times.
Yeah.
But despite all of that...
I got up to 12.
And then you stopped counting. But despite all of that, that never deterred you, Delilah. Why?
The only thing I can take credit for, I can't take credit for my voice. God gave me that. I can't take credit for my personality. God gave me that. The only thing that I can take credit for is if you knock me down, I might take a minute to lick my wounds and to catch my breath. But I will get up. And when I get up, I will defeat you. I will. I will defeat you. And nothing will stop me. So you knock me down, I take a minute, might take an hour, might even take a day or 2 to catch my breath and cry. And I mean, I got fired one time in Philly. And I sat there with a straight face, took it, went in the bathroom, laid out on the floor doing the ugly cry. Janie came in and found me and
Janie,
said,
the producer?
My producer,
I wanted
Janie.
to meet her, yes, Janie.
And she's like, what's going on? I said, we just got fired again. And I was a wreck. But, you know, to his face, I was cool.
You would take it. So if you're thinking about adopting another child, which would be 14. Clearly, children give you a lot of joy in your life.
They do. It's what I'm best at. There are a lot of things I'm not good at.
And you go to Africa, you go to places that aren't in the United States, you adopt kids with special needs. What is that about you?
Well,
what do you see there?
I only set out, believe it or not, to adopt one.
Did you?
I got a home study after Shayla was born, before Shayla was born, after Sonny was born, my firstborn. I was a single mom for 10 years. And after he was born, the doctor said, it's not going to happen again. I had polycystic ovaries and other health problems. They said, it's not going to happen again. So I tried to adopt a little boy. We lived in Boston. He was placed with us, had him for 3 months, Peanut. And then the birth mother came back in the picture. She had lost 6 children to the state, but in our broken, deplorable foster care system, you can pretty much kill a kid and they will still give a kid back to you.
To your mother, yeah.
Yeah. And so they, by law, had to give her another chance, and so he was taken from us. And that was really devastating.
Wrenching. Yeah. How old was he at the time?
Peanut was 18 months and Sonny was 8.
So it was enough for you to get attached.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you said, okay, I will adopt another child.
So I waited for a while, and then I married my Doug, my kid's father, and we were blessed with Shayla, which was a miracle.
Yeah, she was a surprise.
It was a beautiful, wonderful, awesome miracle. But I wanted more kids. I had 2. I wanted 3 or 4. And so we set about adopting, and I wanted to do something that's called twinning in the adoption world, where you adopt a child that's within a year or 2 of your own natural child. So we found a boy in foster care, Emmanuel, who was a year younger than my son. Applied, met him, loved him, fell in love with him the first day we met him. He was 11, got custody of him, and then found out he had siblings in foster care.
Yeah, so you can't just adopt him and not his siblings.
So
How many siblings? How many?
Well, he has a lot, but there were 2 in foster care. And I wrote about it in the book. We went camping, and his little brother, who was 9 at the time, reaches out, Gayle, in the middle of the night in the tent, grabs my hand, and says, "Are you awake?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I call you Mama since I don't have a mama?"
That's a wrap.
That was a wrap. That put me over. So set about adopting the siblings, got custody of them. So I went from 2 children to 5 children in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I sent them to summer camp with the church. And at almost 40 years old, got pregnant with Zack Attack.
Yeah, Zack Attack. Yeah,
So
I like how
he-
you call him that.
Yeah, he was a Zack Attack.
I mean,
He attacked life. He lived life so fully, so completely, so totally.
well, you feel that, and you also said he's most like you. You talk very candidly about you've been married several times. You know, but some people say, okay, if you try it once and you try it twice and it doesn't work, that's it. And Maya Angelou had been married many times, and we would say how many, and she refused to tell us. She wouldn't say how long, because she said that doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter. What happens in the past stays in the
that was
past.
sort of what she said.
Yeah, my mom used to kind of argue with me sometimes, and I'd say, "Mama, why do you choose to remember those things that I choose to forget? Why don't you just remember the ones I want you to remember?"
But you've been married 4 times. Do you always believe that love is possible?
Oh, I do.
Do you always believe that?
I do.
I believe that too.
I do.
I do.
I am a hopeless romantic. I believe that every pot has a lid, that there is somebody that will fit perfectly into your life, who will love you unconditionally just the way you are.
Where do we go to find these pots and these lids?
And these lids.
Yes.
I went to the gym this time.
You did?
I met Doug, my kid's dad, at church, and he's a wonderful human being, but our lives kind of took different trajectories.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You believe there's a pot for everybody.
I believe,
And you never got
I
to-
believe
yeah.
if you desire that, there are some people that have no desire whatsoever to be partnered. But there are, if you desire a partner, I think that desire comes from God, and that He doesn't give you that desire without meeting it long before you're born. He didn't give me the desire to be a mother without the way to meet it. And, you know, I struggled with infertility before Shayla was born.
Yeah.
And was happy to adopt. Anyway, I adopted Manny. That was the one that I got a home study for and planned to adopt. Every other child that I have adopted since, God brought into my life and presented a situation where I had an option to say yes or say no.
You don't.
But it wasn't that I went out looking.
Looking.
I didn't go out So it's not like I brought all these kids into my home or my world because I needed them. God brought them to me because they needed stability.
I know your philosophy is about living simply, which doesn't seem to me how a person that does what you do is living simply. That you don't buy anything new, and that you don't.
Well, this jacket's actually new.
Oh, bravo!
Yeah, just for you.
Well, it's very nice.
But 99% of the items that I purchase.
99%. You said you don't buy anything new. You've never been to Saks. Is that really true?
That is true.
I didn't believe that.
That is true.
Saks Fifth Avenue, the department store.
Yeah, no. Goodwill and St. Vinny's and thrift stores are my Saks.
Yeah.
I've always been thrifty because my grandparents survived the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought that into my parents' lives.
Okay.
And then my father taught me, Gayle, when I was young, he'd say, sis, don't ever go into debt. If you go into debt, you got to work for the man.
Yeah.
If you don't go into debt, you can tell them to kiss your, and that resonated with me.
And it still stays with you today.
Oh, hell yes.
Have you ever been to Macy's?
I have been to Macy's. I have been to Macy's. Do you know they have on the third or fourth floor a section where everything is 75% off?
Yes, I do.
I love that.
I've been on that floor. So the motto for Delilah is love. Love, you say, trumps everything.
Love trumps everything. And not just romantic love. I mean, romantic love is what my show is, a lot of times people think my show is about. But the book that I wrote, the show that I do, the life that I live, I believe, and the reason I wrote the book.
One heart at a time.
I believe we can change the world. We need to stop looking to politicians, looking to policies, looking to programs to change the world. And we need to be the change in the world.
Yeah, and we can do that
one heart at a time. And it's not that we're going to get on a platform. You've got an amazing platform. I've been blessed with an amazing platform. But the best work that I've done in my life, and I know the best work that you've done in your life, is through entering into relationships and giving of ourselves. And we live in a society that's very narcissistic and self-centered. Yeah. We want to be we want to be pleased. Yeah. We want pleasure. We want football. We want basketball.
We want it now. Yeah.
We want it now. We want it quickly. I love Amazon. We want it delivered. A little harder when you live out in the country, but we want it now. We want what we want when we want it. And that is so completely opposite of what's best for us.
So I think we should take your philosophy one heart at a time. We can work miracles one heart at a time.
We can.
It's a pleasure to really meet you.
Thank you.
Because I've so loved and admired you for a very long time.
Thank you. And thank you for getting the drivers to listen.
Yeah, yes. Six so far. That'll do it with me and
Delilah. Do you know that's my daughter that sings that?
It is?
It is.